Hey, before we get started, I want to talk about some bad actors in our industry. These actors are disguising themselves as financial advisors and are really just financial salespeople, and they're trying to sell annuities. Annuities are products generated by insurance companies, which are really good for the insurance company to sell, and are really good for the advisor or salesperson to sell to you, but it's not that great for you. We have a white paper on our website, Buyer Beware, at the very bottom of the website. Put in your email, and we'll send it to you on why you should stay away from these annuities. Thanks for listening. Welcome to the Wiser Wealth Management Roundtable. We believe the best financial advice should always be conflict-free. I'm your host, Casey Smith. Guiding you to financial freedom are my co-hosts, Brad Lyons and Matthews Barnett. Hey, guys.
Hi, Casey. How's it going?
So we are into week 2 of our new space, and you can see that on Instagram. Hadley here has posted to our Instagram some recent pictures. Today it looks a little bit more finished, but I got bad news, guys. Furniture, man. I understand there's like 200 boats that can't get into like LA, and evidently our furniture's on it. You order something right now, it takes a couple of months for it to come in.
Everything's on back order.
We're going to be sitting on boxes here for a while, unfortunately. But yeah, we're excited about this. We're going to do a new 5 and 20 this week. We have this kitchen area that will be used as kind of a hangout spot when we're not recording, and we're going to try some new things today with producer Harrison here. So I'm looking forward to what we're going to develop in this room. But well, let's get started. This week is something that I think we do more of than any other task here, and that's helping people think differently about mortgages. I feel like this is a conversation we have with every single client that comes into the office. And so today, we're going to talk about how do I retire without a mortgage. So maybe you don't already have maybe your mortgage is already gone, and that's great. Maybe you're a client listening to this, and we've already had this conversation. But I think that there's a lot of younger people, especially in their 40s and 50s, that probably need to be making some mortgage decisions as we speak. And so we kind of want to target them today.
Well, what's interesting about what you just spoke about is that at this point in time, the older portion of the millennial generation is turning 30. And for the next 3 years, over 4.5 million millennials will reach that age. And given that age, that's about the time that people begin housing formation years. And so we're going to see an increase of housing formation of the younger generation. And this is the time that they need to hear ideas about mortgages and how to utilize a mortgage and how long should a mortgage be and how should they construct their mortgage relative to their finances to benefit them in the best way. So great topic.
The millennials are actually 40 as the top one, so 30 is kind of in the middle. So it's going to be a huge changing landscape over the next 10 years for sure.
Great.
So I guess the first question is, why don't we want to have a mortgage in retirement? A lot of people fight us on this. It's not a big fight, but people go, why would you do that? I think Matthew, you have some stats on debt in retirement.
Yeah, so obviously, some people haven't thought about this and didn't have enough time to pay down their mortgage, or it's just not a priority to them. But some stats we had on that were that over 40% of households aged 65 to 74 had a mortgage on their primary home, as well as 27% of those 75 and older. So there's a lot of people out there that still hold on to mortgages. This has significantly increased over the last few decades as well, and there's various reasons for that. But over the last year or so, there's significant people with mortgages.
And then on top of that, there's car payments, there's credit card payments, there's personal loan payments, there's boat payments, right?
That's a personal favorite here.
The boat or the payment. So there's a lot of things that there's a lot of things that hurt your cash flow. potentially in retirement.
Yeah, and it depends on what your payment is. I mean, the payments are all over the board, obviously, depending on how much you'd put down at the time and how much equity you have in the home with the rates. But the median was $1,500. But obviously, that's the median. The average was just over $2,000. But they range anywhere from $500 to $4,600 on the survey. So it's all over the place. Obviously, in the South and the Midwest, mortgages are actually a little bit lower. Although in the city like Atlanta, it's probably similar to some of the higher places in the country.
Cash flow is an interesting point in retirement because it's something that people don't really begin thinking about until they reach that retirement age. And by then, it's going to be very difficult to make drastic changes to their income flow, going forward. So what we like to do is to talk to people prior to retirement and show them what that cash flow looks like with and without a mortgage. And it can be drastically different. And it's something that most people perhaps haven't really thought of until they speak with somebody like us.
Another reason to have it, we can stick on the cash flow part. That's what all retirement is about.
Right.
Is cash flow. How much cash flow or can you what does it cost you to live? The basic needs, and then what does it cost you to do the things you want to be able to do in retirement? And so if you have a mortgage payment on top of that, or any payment really on top of that, then it's hurting your ability to be free. You're staying home, maybe not doing any things you want to do with grandkids, or even with your spouse, because you have this note.
Yeah, we said needs, and you don't want to have a mortgage payment. The needs are for food, clothing, and just everyday living. You don't want to have to be paying somebody else.
Well, money going towards servicing your debt is simply going out the window. I mean, the benefit you get from it is actually in arrears. It's something you bought in the past that you're still paying for in the future.
So I think the next part of why you pay it off is peace of mind. It's always great when, I don't like going through major market sell-offs like the COVID sell-off or the financial crisis back in 7, 8, and 9. But during that time period, the people who had their homes paid off, that's one of the first comments they made is like, I'm so glad that my home is paid off because I don't have anxiety over watching my portfolio drop and at the same time having to extract money from that portfolio to then cover my mortgage, right? We got lucky with COVID, I feel like, because everything rebounded so fast. If that had been more drawn out, that would have been a very different story.
Right, and that's a great point. When you're in the midst of a financial crisis or a market downturn, you don't know how long it's going to last because we don't know the future. The fact that the market came back very quickly after the coronavirus was entered into the U.S., that people were fortunate that their portfolios rebounded so quickly. But that's not what we saw during the great financial crisis, as you mentioned, 2007, 8, and 9. It was a much longer time.
You can cut back on other expenses, but you got to pay those liabilities. So when you have to pay that, it kind of puts a little more pressure on you.
Another reason you might want to pay it off is just declining wealth or pressure on the portfolio. So when we determine to pay off a home, it's not based on these principles solely. There's math behind it. And it's extracting money out of a portfolio, especially if it be an IRA. It's extracting money out of a portfolio to pay off a debt and then rerunning the retirement calculation. 9 times out of 10, when you rerun your retirement calculation after not having that mortgage payment, you actually can live on more, right? So you have if you leave the money in, you leave the money invested, and that money is growing, that's advantage you, right? Then you think, well, I'll pull that money out and I'll pay down on the mortgage or pay the mortgage with it. There's still some portfolio relief not having to pull that money out. So not having that portfolio pressure typically allows you to have a net more in your pocket. You're also, too, in that calculation, if it's an IRA, you're trying to cover a $2,000 or $2,200 a month mortgage. Now you don't have to pull that out of the IRA anymore, so your tax liability comes down. So your tax liability is lower. That means everything switches to where your net flow is higher without the mortgage, even leaving the money invested if that's an option.
We like to look at some surveys because it gives us an idea of what people are thinking out there. And the Employee Benefit Research Institute does a lot of surveys on retirees. One of the things that they found out in a survey is that people simply feel better in retirement when they can see their net worth continue growing. The respondents said somewhere over 30% said that they just simply feel better when they see their account balances going up. Actually, running out of money was not the greatest motivator, but rather it was more like, I've worked all my life for this money. I'm going to use it for my retirement and for my expenditures and for my lifestyle. But anything that's left over, I'd like to make sure that it goes to good use also. The idea of just spending it down for no reason, over 37% said, that just seems unnecessary. I don't want to do that. By paying off your mortgage, as we're talking about today, it allows your portfolio to have greater worth, and compound interest is in your favor, as you said. So
yeah, the goal is always to be building wealth. It's not to have declining wealth really at any point in your life. I mean, yes, you can spend down to zero. It's hard to spend down to zero because zero needs to end with you. And no one knows how to time that, right? So people say, I want to spend it all. Well, that's great, but at some point you're destitute or you left a little. Your choice. So it has to be. I think in retirement you don't have to keep building wealth, but you certainly should be maintaining wealth for a good part. Now, what we see at the end of the retirement charts, if you get past 80, 85, 90, inflation has come up so much, and you haven't worked, right? So to keep it, and you probably have a little more conservative portfolio. So what we find is those last 10 years are very expensive, and that's not even really accounting for
healthcare.
Yeah, healthcare, assisted living, or assisted living is not horrible, but nursing home is. So you have to account for that. So having a paid off home actually gives you a little leverage, and if you're the last one to survive, you could potentially sell that home to help cover some of those expenses. I mean, nursing home costs are $8,000 a month right now. That's a pretty big nut to go after for most people.
But I think for most of the benefits in old age, the one that cannot be touched is the home. That's the one valuation that most of the benefit calculations don't include as a value, whereas your bank account, your portfolio account, and other things may be included when determining what government benefits might be available to you.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. We get energized every week seeing more and more downloads, and we really enjoy sharing with you tips and techniques on how we do financial planning, our thoughts on markets and current events. If you'd like to see more, we also have started a YouTube channel under Wiser Wealth Management. On this channel, we have a 5 and 20 every week where we talk about 5 topics over a 20-minute period. I also repost our podcast there as well as our weekly blogs. You can go to that channel, Wiser Wealth Management. Be sure to subscribe. Also, if you have a moment, however you're listening to this podcast, give us a like. Thanks. Now, the naysayers already, maybe you who are listening would say, why interest rates are low? I can get a 30-year for 3%, a little less there for a few weeks. I can make more than that in the stock market.
This is probably the biggest pushback we have when we discuss paying down mortgages with clients or prospects is why. I'm making that obviously hopefully more, especially right now, more than 2.5% in the stock market. So why would I pay something off? There's a few reasons for that. Most of the time, it's not in the stock market. They have cash sitting over in the sidelines, which is earning, if they're lucky, maybe 0.5%. So they're not earning 2.5% just sitting there. So obviously we want it paid down, but just having it sit there is not really accomplishing anything either.
No, and you're also not guaranteed to get anything from the market.
Right.
People don't seem to realize that. We've had a great 10-year run, have a few little blips along the way, but it's not every decade is going to be like this one. You could also could be like the 2000s, right? Where there was a 0 rate of return over a 10-year period.
Right, because we're talking about planning for people in retirement over 30 years now.
Yeah.
We're talking about multiple decades. So the most current, market environment is the one people remember the most. But we're trying to help them understand that it may not be like this forever. It may not be like this for the next 30 years. And we're going to make sure that through conservative, proper planning, we're going to help them have a cash flow all the way to age 95 at least.
I think if you're a younger person, you've done well, that there's an opportunity for some arbitrage there. So you're in your 30s. You could pay off your home, but instead you keep the money invested and you're going to pay down on a mortgage. Your time horizon is very long. The idea, though, is by the time you're in your 60s, the mortgage needs to be gone.
Right. You have time to pay that off, but also that money you've been investing has had time to compound. So it's a lot more beneficial than if you're doing it in your 60s over a short time period.
Yes.
It's really not having that much time to compound or be guaranteed over the short period that it will be higher.
So if you're 20s or 30s, do I pay extra on my mortgage or do I invest in my 401k? You ideally would take out a 15-year mortgage and you would invest in your 401k. That's ideal. Otherwise, you'd be 30-year mortgage and you put more into your 401k.
And then you can always, once you've established, you make more money, you've established that way, you can start paying down later in life once the mortgage is kind of starting to be paid off more, but you're kind of built some wealth as well.
That's right. I think that's appropriate. You have to remember that most people who come see us are probably in their 50s, because they're getting ready for a retirement event, when really they should be coming to see us in their 20s and 30s, because that's where we can make the biggest impact. but they never think that they should do that for some reason. You make small changes, and at the beginning of a 30-year saving stretch, that's millions of dollars difference. You make small changes with 5 years to go until retirement. It doesn't do anything. You have to make big changes. That is not surprising. That's just human nature. I guess another question I would ask too, for someone older who says that they can make more money in the market and keep the mortgage, is if the mortgage is paid off, would you take out a mortgage to then go invest in stocks? And most people, I'd say 90% plus, are going to say no. They would not borrow on their house and then go invest money in the stock market.
It wouldn't just be a no. It'd be of course not. I mean, it would seem so strange that you would even ask that of somebody, because their initial reaction would just absolutely not. But the point is, it's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah. If they have the assets to eliminate it and still provide for their lifestyle, absolutely. That's exactly what they're doing. Yeah. So I don't, and also too, and I want to get on my soapbox about these big box financial advisors, but every week they're trying to meet quotas. And so typically in our industry, the answer is, oh no, you want to keep your money invested and then I'll send you a little extra every month to cover the mortgage. That's typically what the answer is. But the conflict there is, if they have less funds to manage, then they're getting paid less, and therefore they're not achieving their weekly goals as much or their monthly goals with their managers. So you have to understand who's telling you not to invest money in paying off your home, but instead.
Well, it's a bank too. Usually they're double dipping, so you're getting some type of loan out of that as well, either on margin accounts or specific loans for things. So some places in higher net worth, they're big proponents of leverage. We're obviously trying to live debt free and try to pay down as much as possible. So it's just a completely different philosophy there.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about, how do we retire without a mortgage? You have a mortgage now. How do we do that? It's really simple. First of all, is don't take out a mortgage longer than your expected retirement age. So this is a great opportunity to refi if you haven't done it already. Rates are low. They're probably going to be low for a while longer. And you'd simply take out a mortgage that would not, you make the final payment, but you'd still be working. So for someone in their 30s, that's pretty easy. Although that's probably not your forever home in your early 30s, more than likely. I like the 15-year. especially at these low interest rates. This is the best time ever to get a 15-year mortgage. But yeah, that's the simplest. Just do the math. If I want to be done by 60 or 65, make sure the mortgage is paid off by then. If it's not, then you need to find a mortgage calculator to determine how much extra you need to be paying on that. And I hate to plug Dave Ramsey here, but he's got a pretty good mortgage calculator on his website. I'm trying to get something very similar so I can plug it. It's hard to find programmers these days. But Dave Ramsey's website, Ramsey Solutions, he has many calculators actually. But use the mortgage calculator. Type in your current rate, your current payment with principal and interest only, not the escrow, and then you add then the amount that is currently owed on the mortgage, and then you can toggle in how much extra money you could apply to it. So maybe it's $500 extra a month. You type that in, and it'll tell you what date the mortgage will be paid off, how much interest you're saving. And I'll say when I work with people, that's usually an eye opener. Oh my gosh, $500 a month, and I say $48,000 in interest. That's crazy. $48,000.
It's got to be attainable though, and a lot of times, if your original mortgage, if the kind of rule of thumb is principal, interest, taxes, and insurance shouldn't be more than about 25% of your income. If you're stretching at that, or even up to what the mortgage lender will probably give you, 40%, you already stretched pretty thin. Paying any additional amounts probably not going to be attainable. So that comes back to the point of making sure that you have a mortgage that is, attainable, and that you can pay down either through a 15-year or 20-year, and then pay that down a little more aggressively.
But on these calculators, what's interesting is the ability to change the variable of how much extra you want to put down. So it may be $500, it may be $250, maybe $75, whatever the case may be. It does pay it down early. Months and years will come off the end of that mortgage payment by putting some money down today and every month thereafter.
So go figure out how much extra you have to pay or refinance into a mortgage that's paid off by retirement. Now, what if that doesn't work? So what if we get in a situation where we just can't pay it off? What are our options?
Well, obviously the most dramatic one would be to find lower cost living somehow, depending upon your circumstance. What can the person do relative to changing their living environment into a more affordable cost structure, allowing them to have a greater lifestyle thereafter. So what are they willing to do at that point in time? Are they willing to sell the house, buy something less expensive, using the equity that has been built up in the home, over the years? And today, with the housing prices increasing at 10% annualized returns and expected to continue, we're seeing greater and greater home equity in homes today, which gives people the opportunity to lower their cost of living should they choose to sell their home and then buy using the equity in a lower cost real estate environment.
Oh, you have to be careful. Some of that real estate is appreciated so much you could be downsizing but still paying the same amount for your home. So
well, that is true.
It depends what part of town or area you're in.
Exactly.
Well.
Yeah, I think sometimes you have to leave the area to make that work.
Yeah,
you sell your home for a premium, and then you move to a part of town that has more value, or a different town entirely. I did that for some clients recently. I think they're moving to Texas, and they could sell their home. They're in a different state, but Texas is higher than where they were, and so I was like, well, I know you want to be next door to grandchildren, but what if you were, right now they're 8 hours away. But what if you were 45 minutes away, right? So 45 minutes seemed to do it. That purchased and gave them the space that they wanted in order to do that. So you have to think a little differently sometimes, but it is certainly doable. I mean, real estate's local, so it doesn't mean that it's going up everywhere.
Right.
And there's a lot of emerging areas that you can get in on early and participate in the upside. Even in downtime, sometimes there's areas that still go up.
That's true.
Right. I would add too that I think if you want to stay where you are, that you look at refinancing into a 30-year and trying to get that payment as low as possible. So if you can't get it paid off, then we want to get that payment as low as we can, so it doesn't affect cash flow as much going forward. We know that we're going to go into the grave with a mortgage payment, and then if it's possible for a married couple, I'd want to have enough life insurance to cover that mortgage should one of you pass away. That way, the surviving spouse, they're gonna lose a Social Security payment, right? Because in Social Security, you get the higher of the two payments. You don't get to keep both. So let's eliminate the mortgage, and that way, probably it's kind of an offset.
Yeah, that's why
why
they used to have decreasing term life insurance. I don't think they even sell it anymore. But for that purchase, where the amount went down each year with the mortgage, the whole purpose was just to cover the payments, not really for any other benefits.
Yep, that's right. All right. Well, I think that there's probably some exceptions to paying off the home. One of those would be pension payments. Pensions are very rare these days, but we see people who come through here. Husband and wife has pensions plus Social Security, so you could be getting $100,000 a year just in guaranteed payments, right? So in that scenario, I feel a little safer carrying that mortgage because we know that we have these payments coming in every single month. We've done that for people to help them get their dream home, actually, just by calculating the mortgage payments the pension payments to cover that, and then they typically have their own nest egg as well, and that nest egg is really not being touched. So I think that changes the game a little bit when you have guaranteed payments in retirement. Another one too is our business owners. They put a lot of money into their businesses, and carrying a mortgage, waiting for a liquidation event, is probably okay. We have several situations where I could see that they're starting to work less. They carry large mortgages. Some of them are interest-only mortgages, but there's going to be a multi-million-dollar liquidation event. At that point, I would say you want to get your primary home paid off. And then any homes that are in rental programs, I'm not as worried about those. I'm willing to let those float through mortgages and reap the income from those vacation rentals.
Right. As a general rule, I think we want to pay off the primary home, and any secondary or rental home, it's okay to mortgage those because the cash flows that they produce on their own, they become self-sustaining.
That's right. But in summary, you can live on so little, very little amount of money every year if you don't have debt payments. All you have is utilities, and we don't know what the future holds. We don't know what the market's going to give us over the next 10, 15 years. We have a lot of historical averages. We know what we should be getting, but the market doesn't guarantee you anything. We're in a situation where we have a lot of uncertainty as far as fiscal conservative. That's a word we probably haven't said in 10 years. A fiscal conservative in the government. Republicans and Democrats are spending more and more each year on their programs. And at some point, that hurts us. I don't know which generation pays for it, but at some point it hurts us. So you have all these big things that we can't control and that we can't really wrap our heads around the consequences over a 10, 20-year period. But there's something to be said about a paid-off home that no matter what happens in the world, no matter what happens with your own personal finances or your family, that there's a home to go to that belongs to you, at least in this country.
Well, it creates a very high level of security for people. You feel secure about your own home. If you still owe money on it, people are going to feel less secure about it. And if even worse case situation, if you're renting in retirement, if you're unable to own a home, the security is just not there for people the way it is for when you own your home and it's paid for. As to your point, they can't come take it away from you.
That's right.
I mean, unfortunately, a lot of Americans rely on Social Security, as we've seen. And so, if you have a payment as well as trying to live off something like that, that's pretty tough. If you've been able to plan and pay that down and you can live on Social Security, maybe some other supplements, that's not only the peace of mind, but that just allows you to live a better life.
Absolutely.
Right.
Great conversation, guys. Look forward to the next one. And if you have a moment, please remember to check us out on our YouTube channel at Wiser Wealth Management. Make sure you subscribe, as well as liking our podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. Thanks again.
Weiser Wealth Management Incorporated is a registered investment advisor. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, investments, or investment strategies. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Be sure to first consult with a qualified financial advisor and/or tax professional before implementing any strategy discussed herein. Past performance is not indicative of future performance.